But as a leader, your job is to make decisions. And if you struggle with that ability, if you can't understand the subject matters, if you can't ascertain the information needed to make that decision, you will lose the influence of your employees. You will lose their respect, I guess, or they will start to see weaknesses because they look to you to make those decisions. That's what you're there to do.
Hello and welcome to Swimming in the Flood, a podcast where we develop the resilient leader's mindset. My guest today is Greg Scorpio from G-Form. Good afternoon, Greg. How are you today?
Hey, Trent. Very well. Thank you so much. Glad to be here with you.
Absolutely. Thank you very much. I understand that your first job was as a golf caddy. I'm curious what age you were, and were the bags actually bigger than you were at the time?
A great question. Yeah, thanks again for having me. Yeah, I was 12 years old. First job, golf caddy. 12 years old, and the bags back in the, let's say, early 90s were much, much heavier and bigger and not conducive to having, young men carry them around the golf course. So I actually started riding the cart in caddying because I couldn't carry the bags, and then as I grew up, physically be able to carry them around the course.
Listen, that's not just working harder, that's working smarter. That's
Right.
part of what we're going to be talking about today.
Cash as a 13, 14, 15-year-old, as well as being outdoors, as well as networking at the time, which you didn't even know you were doing, but you were doing, and learning the game of golf, which is just, my favorite game in the world to play and be a part of. So great job. I go back to so many experiences on that, but yeah, that's how I got my start in life.
What a great networking experience at 12, 13, 14 years old. Are there any lessons you learned on the golf course with those golfers that still apply to your work today?
The ability to socialize kind of your thoughts and dialogue. These golfers don't come out, even the older guys who may not be that good at golf, they don't want to come out and have a mute for a caddy, just like a CEO or a president doesn't want to hire a mute for an employee, whatever rank. They want people to be interactive. They want people to be social. They want people to share feedback and give recommendations, just like you would to say, hey, you need a 5-iron here because the wind is right in your face. Well, hey, just so you know, we're not going to be able to close out this invoice this month because it didn't ship on time. It's the same kind of just being able to dialogue with people and have the confidence to do that. That went into caddying and still applies to business these days.
You are the chief financial officer of the Protective Gear Company. Maybe you can tell us a little bit about what your products are and your history there.
The company's called G-Form, based in Providence, Rhode Island. It's been around for 15 years. It started as an extension of a molding and plastics manufacturer in North Smithfield, Rhode Island. And the guys who kind of built this foam technology, which hardens on impacts and is washable and flexible and lightweight and has kind of these unique aspects to it that are different from the standard pads that you see in the market. They quickly branched out into a mountain biking market and a boarding market with snowboarders. Rolled out a soccer line headlined by Pele as a key brand ambassador in 2013 and 2014. Launched baseball in 2016, followed by lacrosse and basketball and other kind of ancillary volleyball protection markets as well. I've been with the company now for 10 years. The product is made here in the U.S. It's a great story about, like we said, impact protection and really going next level is kind of our brand slogan. So it allows our athletes to kind of perform at the max ability of what they need to do without fearing that whatever they need to be protected from injury from is not going to affect them. So we like to assure that with our customers. And it's a great brand story and it's a great product. The application of what we make, because we're a manufacturer, a wholesaler, and a retailer, this product has different applications beyond impact protection too. So we have product development in law enforcement, as it applies to let's say riot gear, as well as applications within the military. So the foam product doesn't just go on a body part. It can go around a large piece of cargo that's being dropped from a plane, let's say, and support that as it's being dropped.
I noticed that G-Form has done quite a bit of work now, or at least starting to do quite a bit of work in the military. And I know that you talk about within your company, there's a why. And that why, as I understood it, is protect those that protect us. How does your company revolve or rally to that why call?
Well, we just all believe in what our underlying mission is in terms of impact protection, right? And safeguarding, individuals and their bodies, and trying to still let them achieve their goals. That when we come up with slogans like that for the military specifically, it's just all encompassing of what we're trying to do and develop every day here with
Sure.
those thoughts in mind. I mean, we have mannequins all around the office that get attached with different prototypes of padding and protection all over the body, because we're trying to put ourselves in those shoes to see what needs to be protected, what is comfortable, and what is kind of a story that athletes or military people or really any consumer wants to stick behind,
Sure.
and get behind and support the product by buying it and wearing it.
How do your employees embrace that message? Is there something extra that they find inside themselves because they know they're working for police or they're working for military, or they're just protecting young kids that are athletes from getting broken ribs?
Great question. The military side really encompasses kind of a lot of the pro America type of sentiment that's carried by so many individuals within the state and in the country. It's just, for everything that law enforcement or our military does for us, if we can provide any way to give back or support them, obviously by selling them stuff, but at the same time, providing a product that they would wear and feel safe in and know that it was made in the USA, and that kind of value and mission within the employees and what they're doing every day is heard and seen throughout their weekly assignments. On the
Sure.
other side, the company started in the bike market or in the soccer market. Who we hired on sales, marketing, and product development was bikers, was soccer
Mhm.
players. Developed a degree in, let's say, marketing or business development, bring them into the job, and they invoke their passions from what they knew when they were growing up with into their business world now. So you
Sure.
get that natural drive from people because they're seeing that, and they can live that every day. They have that purpose with passion because that's all they knew and grew up with. I'm
Sure.
an accountant, I'm a finance guy, so it's a little different for me. But and we don't have a golf protection line. But
Well, what type of protection do you need as an accountant? I mean, you clearly have people that don't like you because you're a CFO, right?
helmets, Trent, helmets. Are you kidding me? When I crush people's budgets and take them down, there's stuff flying at me all the time.
I can imagine that you probably the test dummy for these.
That's right. That's right. Exactly. Yeah. That's
Greg,
how we do it. We hired people who would wear the product themselves if they were actively playing.
one of your people that represent you is a woman that goes to Harvard. She's part of the Danish national soccer team. And so she would fall into this NIL category, I would assume. Were there any things that you and GForm had to work through to bring on a student athlete with the new NIL rules?
Not specifically for her. The way the NIL works, and I do have a lot of knowledge of it, from the local sports here within Providence College and URI. But the way it works is the school kind of disperses that money
Okay.
themselves through their collectives. These athletes can sign separate sponsorships and make their own money, which is all we did with her here. So it's just a separate sponsorship. It's not filtered through the NIL definition per the
Okay.
Harvard NIL. Having said that, this is the new age we live in, where student athletes can go out and use their name, image, and likeness to solicit any sorts of revenues that work for them.
Sure. It's a brave new world with respect to that. I don't know how much I could have gotten out of GForm when I was a swimmer at Providence College. I'm guessing you didn't have the right gear for me.
Uh, Not protection gear. We have some apparel coming out, and we could have launched a G-form bathing suit or maybe some goggles. Well, you would have led our rankings on NAL money, Trent.
Oh, thank you. You're so wonderful. Greg, as a chief financial officer, what do you consider to be your paramount duty to your company?
My duty, CFO at G-form, is to be a financial steward, protector, and translator to the CEO and the board of directors on pretty much all things G-form, right? So it's a very general statement, but I hold myself accountable towards any number that's projected here or shown or submitted forward as being factual and defendable. And at the same time, I am here to support the CEO as his right hand person in all facets of G-form. regardless if it's just finance and accounting. I consider myself his number two. And in that sense, I like to think of myself as a CEO. And what I mean by that is I don't put myself in those shoes or make those actions. But if he was ever not here, someone needs to step in that shoe, in that particular role. So I put myself in a position to be able to lead and carry kind of the respect of the employees to operate in that capacity in his stead.
Sure. What you just described sounds a whole lot like the Miss America pageant when they say the first runner-up in her duties.
It's a good way to analogize it, but in some ways it's true. I think succession planning, right, for lack of a better phrase, at any size company is so overlooked sometimes. Right. So like some companies are so dependent upon CEOs to lead them forward that God forbid something ever happened to them. What do the investors do? What does the board do? What does the family do? What do the employees do? Is there an active plan in place to kind of transition and keep everything going? Because if there's not, everything falls apart.
How many years does that take to put in place one? And how far down the organizational line do you think that goes in most companies?
Effectively, it's a 3 to 5 year planning process to get comfortable that the succession plan is in place. Because you're not going to go and just bring on a recruiter and hire externally to replace a CEO who's no longer here on a Friday, right? That takes a while too. But internally, yeah, it's a 3 to 5 year planning process to get into a comfortable place where you have a succession plan.
I'm sure it is. It's something we really have to consider as the labor market continues to get tighter and some of our leading talent gets kind of moved around a little bit of a merry-go-round. It makes it harder to plan years out.
Yeah, it's just applicable to so many different types of business, to even service firms and LLPs, partnerships, or whatever. What's the plan going forward? How do you transition over from let's just say a baby boomer or older type of generation to a younger generation that has new ideas on technology and resources and hiring and training that's changed from generation to generation while doing it seamlessly? It needs a lot of attention at all time for any organization.
When you're looking across your organization, what's one characteristic that you believe leaders they often overlook, but it's crucial for lasting influence?
Yeah. It's a great question. I believe that something that's overlooked and not paid attention to enough is decisiveness, right? So sometimes you have people in a leadership position who aren't as well versed or don't have the appropriate background of the subject matter in question, let's say. I'm speaking very generally here.
Mm-hmm.
But as a leader, your job is to make decisions.
Sure.
And if you struggle with that ability, if you can't understand the subject matters, if you can't ascertain the information needed to make that decision, you will lose the influence of your employees. You will lose their respect, I guess, or they will start to see weaknesses because they look to you to make those decisions. That's what you're there to do. Mm-hmm. It's okay to ask about information that goes into it. But at the end of the day, you're responsible for that. So being able to be decisive is a trait that's very, very critical and needed to anyone in a leadership role. And I think sometimes that's overlooked.
What's your process for making significant decisions with your team? How do you go about that?
Sure. I try to I try to base it on as much factual information or scientific information or data that's out there. So I try to rally that first so that when I'm making a decision, I can stand behind something and fall back on something that's actually ideally tangible, whether it be data or some sort of facts. And then I try to blend that in with my own personal kind of confidence, let's say, or skill set or background myself to come up with what I believe is the right decision. So it's a combination of understanding the situation, understanding the outcome, and being confident to kind of blend the two together to make that decision.
Sure. I've always found it challenging sometimes. I mean, and there's a level between, do I need 95% confidence interval? Do I need 97.5% confidence interval before I make a decision? And how much extra time I'm willing to invest before I make that final decision? Because otherwise, you just get paralysis by analysis.
Yeah, you can't be reckless about what you're doing and just making decisions on, but by all means, something has to happen, right? So you're going to have to make a decision one way or another. So you got to go out there and get those facts, and you got to understand what's in play here to do that. But that is your task, and you'll need to make that decision at the end of the day.
I'm sure you've experienced this hundreds of times. I have too. Sometimes when you make a decision, some people feel vindicated. Other people feel very angry that you didn't follow their suggestion, their lead, their advice. How do you manage that with those people?
Well, that's going to happen in pretty much every organization and in most situations. In other words, you're never going to make everyone happy, right? That's kind of a fact of life. And it's something that I've learned over the years. When I was younger, I was trying to make everyone happy, and you slowly start to realize that that's not the case. So how do you manage that? I mean, you have to come to that understanding internally that no matter what, there's going to be disagreements. You have two people in the room both offering opinions. You got to choose one or the other.
Right.
However, you can do it in a way where you're being respectful and you're listening, right? You're giving a platform and a stage for presentation for the person that you're going to end up deciding against. But
Sure.
At least you heard them, and at least you respected them, and at least you communicated with them to say, this was great. The reason why it didn't happen was because of this, right? You give an answer as to why. You're transparent with them. And you say, I'd love to have you back at the table for the next time because what you offered here was great, and I'm going to need you again at some point.
You just listed 5 or 6 items that Stephen Covey would have put into his high-speed trust book about how to build trust inside of relationships. And that's exactly what you're doing. It sounds to me that you've built trust inside of your team that I'm not saying no to you personally. I'm saying no to this idea at this time, but I'm still open. If you can come out with a better logic or something else, I'll reconsider that.
It's absolutely true. It's so much in life is a human affair. And in this particular case, or in these cases, that's what it's about. It's about saying no to the idea, not no to the person.
Yeah,
And you won't win on that every time. You'll still make them upset.
You'll still have people griping the second they get outside the door. Absolutely right.
That's right. Exactly.
How do you train your team or this group to understand how they should present to win their argument when they're not lawyers here? So how do you train them for this? To say, I want you to be right. Here's how we're going to do it.
Yeah, I mean, it's about kind of putting themselves in my shoes, right? And saying, if you were me, how would you be able to make this decision, right? So telling them that if they're tasked with that, what do they need to make the decision? They need factual information, they need backup, they need support, they need rationale, they need reasoning why. If they just come through an idea and say, I think it'll work, I think it'll be good, I really like it because it's got a hunch on it, that's great, but I need something more than that. And if you were in my shoes, could you make that decision on a hunch? No. So it's trying to train them to say, what would you do in my shoes? And if you had all the information that you have that you've given to me, could you make the same decision, or how would you be able to handle it? It's trying to be transparent. It's trying to show them what you're challenged with so that they can complete the challenge themselves. And then hopefully you get them to understand why certain things happen.
That's a great answer. That's a great answer, Greg. Who's your favorite fictional character?
Oh, great question. So many. I'm a fan of so many movies over the years, and I'm going to be totally kind of cliche, I guess, as a very proud Italian American, but there was something from when I first watched it that always resonated with Vito Corleone. And okay, when we're saying that, and I'm defending my favorite fictional character, murderer, gambler, racketeer. Yep, yeah, he was all that.
Okay, we'll take that. That's okay. We all have our faults.
But that's not why he was my favorite. If you really watch that movie, read the book, which I did, and understand how that character was written, he was loyal, he was smart, he was calculating, and he was patriarchal. And those are 4 attributes that I really respect. And there's a quote in the first movie at the beginning when he says to his son, He says to his son, Santino, who I named Santino. My son's named Santino too. He says to his son, Sonny, who's Santino, he says, never let someone outside the family know what you're thinking, right? And that resonates into business so well, because so often we speak more than we should listen. We don't communicate with purpose, and we don't realize that the power lies in thoughtful words. So in that particular scene, Sonny offers up something that he shouldn't have even said, and he thought without speaking, where he should have just been listening. And to see Vito's reaction and say that quote in that moment always said to me just how powerful that was, and how many characteristics I kind of drew from that scene and him as a character, and kind of still sticks with me today.
That's a great character. When I have my list, and I do, Vito's in the top 3 there. Absolutely, really? Me. He sure is, and I have the same trepidation of saying it out loud, as well.
Who's number 1, Trent? I got to ask, who's number 1?
For me, it's Odysseus.
Wow.
Just somebody who just had this continual drive to get home to his wife. That's all he wanted to do for 10 years. And his cleverness, his resiliency, his strength, his leadership, they all certainly resonate with me. For you, I'm sure you're very happy that all the vehicles now have Easy Pass, so your Santino doesn't have to stop at a toll booth.
Well done. And boy, do I feel like an illiterate moron here. You picked a 13th century Greek mythology character who was one of the most famous fictional characters in history. I picked a 1950s movie star.
That's quite all right.
Yeah.
Greg Scorpio, you have been a wonderful guest today. I want to thank you very much for coming, and thank you for your time.
Wonderful, Trent. Thank you so much for having me. It's been a pleasure.
Thank you. Folks, thanks for joining Swimming in the Flood. Resilient leadership is hard. Navigating those currents are very challenging, but with one tack or another, we can get there together. If you enjoyed this video, please subscribe on our YouTube channel. You can go to my website at trentthiru.com to find more videos and information about speaking and training. Friends, thank you very much for joining. We'll see you again soon. And a last thank you to Greg. We appreciate you today, sir. Thank you.
Thanks, folks.
Bye, folks.